This is VSiN at the Track. Now here's your hosts, Mike Somich and Aaron Halterman.
Hey everybody, welcome in here. VSiN at the Track. Yet another edition here, absolutely loaded. I am your host, Mike Somich, joined here by Aaron Halterman. And Aaron, I got to be at Saratoga last weekend. It was phenomenal being back up at the spa. I got to say, highly underrated part of being at Saratoga, the jockey access that you get, especially for the kids. So if you've never been there, they've got this jockeys building. They've got to walk through the crowd to get to the paddock. You've got to walk through the crowd to get back from the winner's circle to that jockey area. And Dylan Davis gets a special shout out because after every single race, he was handing out goggles, signing autographs for kids. My daughter loved it. One of those just sweet treats up at Saratoga that I don't think gets enough love.
Absolutely. And Dylan Davis is the man. There's no doubt about it. He is the official jockey of this show, Somich. So I love Dylan, and now you love Dylan. I'm glad you're on my side finally. Dude, it's awesome. It's great for the kids. And when I'm sober, I like watching the kids get all the goggles. And when I'm drunk, I like trying to get the goggles myself from the guys. So it's always fun to go up there. There are so many little things about that place. And I feel like every time I go up there, I appreciate something different about it, right? And so this time, you and I have never talked about the jockey walk, but now you got to experience it. And you had a younger child that was just, got a kick out of that probably. And it's like, wow, that is really cool. So another great aspect, no doubt about it.
Yeah, got to be there Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday, obviously, highlighted by the Jim Dandy. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about Nysos and what we saw out in California, including a phenomenal 2-year-old debut. We've got 4 separate races that we're going to highlight here over the weekend from both Saratoga and Del Mar. And of course, we have to talk about computer-assisted wagering. The cause out there that we saw so many late odds moves at Del Mar. Del Mar makes a change. We'll jump into that and give our thoughts around that specific situation as well. But we got to start out with the big horse right now, and that's Sovereignty, who wins the Jim Dandy, gets 104 Beyer. Baeza runs second, gets 103, a career high for him. And this was a race that I was interested to see what we'd get from Sovereignty. Mott talked about heading into the race. This was definitely going to be a point where they're shooting for the Travers. The Dandy was not the target here. And when you watch it, Sovereignty wins by a length. I was alive to quite a bit of money to Sovereignty. So it was a little nerve-wracking in the backstretch when he was sitting in last place. But we did see him make that move around the far turn and really hold off Baeza, I'll say, without ever trying. Is that fair? Did he never really try in this race, Aaron?
Maybe 1 or 2 reminders, but not out of, let's say, second gear, right? So that was a big thing. He was just tremendous in this race. It was kind of scary for a half second. So what happened basically was he broke, and for a half second, he was in front because he outbroke everybody. They got him back in a great position. He was sitting there in second, maybe third, just kind of depending on where he was in the track, but he was perfect. The point you're talking about, it's like all the horses went early, and Junior Alvarado said, why are you doing that? It's not time to go yet. And he did drop back into last for, 5 seconds? And then when Alvarado asked this horse to run, it was pretty easy. And like I said, in the stretch, Baeza, I thought he ran a very good race. I really liked how he ran in the race there. I thought he was an improved effort versus what we saw from him in the Belmont Stakes. But overall, Sovereignty seemed to kind of toy with him late. He seemed to kind of have him measured. And like you said, I don't think it was the best effort from Sovereignty. I think there's a lot more in the tank. I think we'll see it next time when the race gets bigger for the Travers.
Yeah, really a hand ride more than anything else from Alvarado down the stretch. He did, I think, tap him twice, as you mentioned. But other than that, just shook the reins at him, and Sovereignty was able to respond. Pretty crazy. You get 104 Beyer for a hand ride there. Got a 109 in the Belmont, a 104 in the Derby, so matches the Beyer we saw in the Derby. I want to talk about Baeza a little bit more before we transition away here, specifically because Baeza more forwardly placed in this race. And you mentioned, Sovereignty kind of outbroke the field. Moplex always was going to get the lead. He was really the only lone speed. But Sovereignty and Baeza, we saw kind of going back and forth for second and third for the early portions of this race. The big switch for Baeza was my boy Hector Berrios takes over for everyone else's boy, Flavien Prat, here on this horse. And Berrios puts him into the race much like he did in California. I like those tactic switches. I think Baeza has to be forward if he wants to be the best version of himself as he heads to what we expect to be the Travers, and a very interesting Travers where magnitude also pointing to. So it should be a fun race here later this year at Saratoga. I am sure Sovereignty will be a heavy favorite. It might be the time to try and beat him, though, Aaron. Are you with me here that the one chance you get here to Travers is to beat Sovereignty?
No. I think honestly, I think if you were going to beat him, it would have been in the Jim Dandy. Think about like a race a little bit shorter, and we know Bill Mott, the big race is usually when the horse runs the best, and the prep right before. Think about the Florida Derby where he lost, and then he won. He's won 3 in a row now. But think about that. So that was kind of the time I think was last Saturday, and again. Margin-wise, it was sort of close, but you watch the race back, it's like, no, that wasn't really close. I think he runs a better race than the Travers. I don't think it's time to beat him there. Honestly, Mike, I really think this horse is going to have a 4-race winning streak going into the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think he wins the Travers pretty easily.
Magnitude gate to wire in the Travers. Calling it now. I'm calling it now, Aaron Halterman. Pratt was not on Baeza because Pratt was over in Southern California riding at Del Mar Racetrack, and specifically riding 2 horses that we're going to talk about next. The first, Nysos, going 1 mile and a 16th, gets a pretty easy victory, I would say. Definitely never left first gear, taking on a shorter field of about 5 horses in the San Diego. Big question for Nysos here was, are we going to stretch out well? How are we going to handle the 2 turns? 1 mile and 16th was the longest distance Nysos had raced up until this point. Did have a win at 1 mile down at Santa Anita. I thought he passed every single test with the flying colors here. Moving on to the Pacific Classic next, going 1 mile and a quarter. Is Nysos a real contender in the Classic division?
Yeah, I think he absolutely is. I think if, the Breeders' Cup Classic was 1 mile and a 16th, I would almost make him the favorite. I thought he was electric at that distance, and he's been electric going 1 mile and, of course, going 7 furlongs as well. You look at Nysos, the only race he lost was the Churchill Downs, which was on Kentucky Derby Day. He still almost won it. He got second. It was off a tremendously long layoff of 15 months as well, so you could kind of make an argument if it was the second race off the layoff, he probably would have won it. But regardless of all that, yeah, he's a primetime contender. The big question is, going from 1 mile and a 16th to 1 mile and a quarter, that is obviously a question mark. That is something that another test he's going to have to pass. But I'm with you. All indications from that race that we saw looks like he's going to be just fine doing that. And also, when you look at his pedigree and you look at the breeding on this horse, he really should be better the longer they go. So I'm pretty confident he'll be able to do it. I am pretty excited about him. I think he's a primetime contender right now for the Classic.
Yeah, son of Nyquist, who won the Kentucky Derby out of a Bernardini mare. Shouldn't be a problem to be able to go longer, just whether or not we're going to be able to keep that high cruising speed going. I love the fact that Nysos stalked. I thought that was the big thing that I was looking for. Didn't need the lead, sat on the inside. As soon as he got room in the lane, popped out and was able to make a big run. Now, the other horse that turned heads over at Del Mar was actually in the 4th race from Saturday. 5.5 furlong, $100,000 maiden special weight, and it was the debut of $3 million purchase. This was in the OBS March 25 sale, so of racing age sale. $3 million is what Brant sold for. He was the 8-horse morning line 3-1. That was a pipe dream. Horse went off at sub-even money and did not disappoint the people who chose to back Brant in this spot. I'm going to throw it to you because I thought one specific thing was just wildly impressive about this, but I want to get your take on Brant first, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, listen, I thought it was a really good first race, and I think we're going to be on the same page when we say this. I think the most impressive thing for me was he wasn't one of these Bob Baffert runners that just flies to the front as fast as they can and try to take him gate to wire. That's how you see most of the Bob Baffert debut winners. That's how you see him do it, right? This horse was very patient, I thought, and kind of like Nysos and like Sovereignty in a way. You could tell the horse was just kind of sitting. He was in a nice stride, but he wasn't flying, and he was just waiting for the jockey cue. And when he got it, we just took off. And, I had heard some hype on the horse that ran second for Doug O'Neill. I've heard that horse is decent. I had heard some hype on Balboa, the 3rd place horse for Bob Baffert as well. So while, we never know what these maiden fields actually are because all of them are first-time starters, essentially, this time of year, we hear hype on horses, right? We're connected enough to where we'll hear things. And, of course, I heard a lot about Brant, and he was going to be very good, but I'd heard some other things as well. Point I'm trying to make, I don't think that was like a weak race. I think that'll be a productive maiden race. And for him to kind of do it very easily and do it with the style that I mentioned, that's pretty darn impressive. So, look, it's so early in the year. We've seen Bob Baffert horses debut, and then they don't make it to the 3-year-old season. They get injured and stuff like that. But he is a very exciting prospect of a bunch of exciting prospects that we have right now.
I'll go a step further. That's going to be the best 2-year-old race we see all year at Del Mar this season. That was a loaded race. I mean, you mentioned the Doug O'Neill horse who ends up running second in Civil Liberty. You mentioned Balboa, who is another one that I had heard a lot about. Those three horses will all be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Del Mar in November. I think that was just a stacked field. And the fact that Brant was able to do it, as you said, from off the pace, I thought was so impressive. If you look at the 100 Beyers by 2-year-olds, the last one we saw was a 104 Beyer by Speedboat Beach when he set the track record. That was just gate to wire. That was just pure, unbelievable speed. And this was a situation where there was the mental aptitude to not have to go right to the front, to be able to sit behind horses and then make a move. And that, to me, is a different level of expectation when you see a horse with that level of maturity in a first start who goes that fast. That, to me, is just a very, very scary combination. Brant 101 Beyer on debut. Big things expected of him. Keep an eye on him in a stakes race next time out at Del Mar and eventually the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We'll talk about the best 2-year-olds on the East Coast a little bit later. Your best bet coming from the Saratoga Special, where we've got 3 very good 2-year-olds on the track. But before we get to the picking the races, one of the big topics of conversation over the last week or so has been the computer-assisted wagering, CAWs, that have been betting into races specifically at Del Mar, which has always been a very big CAW track, by the way. They have massive amounts of money coming in through the Elite Racing Group. We saw massive odd ships. The biggest one with Lovesick Blues in the Bing Crosby, 43-1, goes down at 18-1, ends up winning the race. There was other spots as well, 15-1s to 5-1s. We saw a huge shift from 18-1 down to 9-2. The optics are terrible, and because of that, Del Mar has said, in the win pool only, CAWs can no longer bet inside of 2 minutes to post, which I think is a positive thing from an optic perspective, because the win pool is the one where you actually see those prices fluctuate. Now, I do want to make sure I say this. It does not affect any other pool. They can still bet at the last second in exacta pools, trifecta pools, pick 5 pools, pick 6 pools. Every other pool still has the same access to the tote board. And the main difference with CAWs and you and me, Aaron, they are directly connected to the pool. They're able to bet with less than a second before the gate breaks. And they have computers telling them, hey, this horse should be 9-2. So they're going to know the exact dollar amount with 1 second before the gate breaks to bet that horse down to 5-1. And so it's computers that you are trying to beat. And so it's nice to see them out of the win pool. I think that's a positive. But this is basically an aesthetic move, right? Because if you really want to make a difference, you shut them out of every pool in the last 2 minutes versus just the win pool. What's your take on what Del Mar did and the steps they've taken to try and make the transparency of the win pool a little bit better?
Well, horse racing has a major problem with these CAWs, and the problem being is they're starting to take up more and more of their handle. And so, yes, you can just say, hey, we're outlawing you. You're also then, in turn, losing profit, just to put it bluntly. So they have a huge problem, and they have such a huge advantage over the regular people like us, and like I'm sure 99.9% of you that are listening, because we don't do it that way. We do it. We get our app out. It's like, okay, here's a horse. It's 5-1. There's 1 minute to post. That horse is not going to drop. And then they open the gates, and the horse is 2-1. And you're like, I wouldn't have bet the horse at 2-1, but I waited to the last second. What am I supposed to do here? You can't do anything about it. So I think as far as trying to help that person that I just described, which is most of us, I do think that does help, because you are going to get that computer money in with 2 minutes to post, and you're going to understand and know, okay, now here are the real odds. They're not going to fluctuate much after that. So I think that is a really good step. Like you said, it's still a problem. It's a problem for the regular everyday horse player, no matter what you try to do, and it's a problem for the track if you outlaw, the CAW players. So I don't really know what the answer is past what they did, and I think the only thing that disappoints me is they knew this is a problem for a long time. This is not a new situation at Del Mar. This happens a lot. And now you do it. And the only reason you did it is because it got embarrassing for you. I mean, absolutely embarrassing when a horse is 28-1 and leaves the gate 5-1. So now you do something because you had to do something because it's embarrassing. You should have done it a long time ago like other tracks have. So good on you for doing it. Bad on you for doing it so late in the game.
Yeah, you mentioned other tracks. Naira does this as well. So Saratoga, the win pool cut off with 2 minutes to post. And one thing we've seen at Saratoga because of that is people complain about the exacta returns. And this is why I want to bring this up. And so with the CAWs out of the pool at 2 minutes, the win bet at Saratoga is the most valuable bet you can make outside of some other pools that they do have no CAWs allowed in. The win bet at Del Mar now becomes more valuable. If I am a player that's a recreational player, I'm playing into the win pool, and it's funny because you have people on X that are tweeting out, well, this exact is so short because this 10-1 is over a 5-1. Well, you know why it's so short? It's because the win price was wrong, according to the CAW's computer, and they're betting that exacta when you can be betting that win. And that's what I would say would you take a step back. The exacta price isn't actually short. The win price was long, and that's the difference. And now you, as a bettor, can take advantage of those longer win prices. I like to keep an eye on the exacta pools to see what is getting bet, especially in the last 2 minutes, to see if there are any drastic changes. And I might put in a win wager if I see a horse that I was lukewarm on that gets a big move in the exacta pool that I want to bet to win, because I do think that is one way to take advantage of it. So a lot more of my money now goes to win betting at Del Mar, where not a lot of it did because of these big odd shifts. So but I usually bet to win at Saratoga, and I'll bet some of these multi-race sequences because I think there's less of an advantage if you're playing properly into those. In my mind, the win pool now at Del Mar is much more playable.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think what we're going to have to do as handicappers is we have to understand which pools to play into to kind of mitigate the situation with the computer players. And I understand that's hard to do. You and I follow it. You and I live it. You and I are here every day. We have to realize that a lot of people that are playing the races, they might just play on a Saturday, or they might take a month off and then they play for 2 weeks straight and then they're off again. They're not following it every single day like that. So, yeah, it makes it difficult to kind of have the casual player not run into situations like that. And again, how do you make a big fan of something? Well, you get a casual fan, and then they have a great experience, and then they get involved in it more and more. Last week, if you're a casual fan and you jumped into Del Mar and you happen to bet a horse that was 20-1 that ended up going off at 5-1, you may not want to come back, because that is disheartening as hell, right? I mean, when you see that horse hit the wire and you think, I'm going to get $40 for my $2 wager, and instead you got $10, that's not good. Even though you won, that ain't good. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's to make this more public. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is long term. But you're right. For us, we have to sit here and we have to take into account that, okay, these Del Mar win wagers, they weren't there anymore. We were getting around them. Well, now we got to play wins. But what if half the people that are playing miss that news and they don't really know what to do? So, again, it's a huge problem for the bettors, and it's a huge problem for horse racing overall. But I am with you. I'm adjusting, and I'll continue to adjust based on news of what we get with this. It's a situation, again, where I also think, not to just go on and on, but I think a lot of big horse racing news outlets, they tend to kind of shy away from this topic because it is kind of a dirty topic when you think about it. Because at the end of the day, the guys that are really getting hosed are the everyday players in this thing. And I feel like a lot of racing media doesn't want to kind of get into that, but that is the case.
Well, yeah, of course they don't want to get into it. This is an old boy sport where everyone is incredibly incestuous. Like, that's just the honest truth, right? Everyone is so intertwined that, the big publications, they don't want to say, oh, you shouldn't be betting this, because they need you to buy programs from them. They need you to do something. So it's all a little bit of a racketeering move in that sense, where these different places are trying to push forth a positive smiley face, right? It's why you see certain places interview certain trainers that are in trouble and not mention it or not ask them about it, because again, it's all about the positivity, because they want you to bet more money. And so one thing that we'll do on this show is continue to talk about this, how we are adjusting based on what's happening. And if there is additional news, we'll obviously cover that. But the win pool at Del Mar now is one of the ones, much like the win pool at Saratoga, which I think is a very good place to be putting your money, because you do have less of a disadvantage than you did before. So it's important to note that. Now, before we get into the handicapping of the 4 bigger races over the weekend, I do want to mention, if you want to become a VSiN Pro, head over to VSiN.com/subscribe today. You can try it now for your first month for just $9.99. That would include the betting guides for both the NFL and college football, as well as daily articles, daily email blasts, and picks from every host and guest on any show over VSiN. You also get access to the VSiN Watch app, where you can check that out and see the live VSiN programming. So head over to VSiN.com/subscribe, just $9.99 for your first month. All right, Aaron, let's head into the handicapping side of this. We've got 3 races from Saratoga, 1 from Del Mar, so let's start out on the West Coast. We've got the Grade 1 Clement L. Hirsch Stakes, race number 10 on Saturday's card over at Del Mar. And when I saw the past performances for this, I saw Copian sitting there at the bottom, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm probably just going to pick Copian in this race. Then I looked at who was in it. Seismic Beauty. Not a bad horse at all. You've got a horse that's coming in named Richie, who's run in the U.S. for Bob Baffert 5 times. Very impressive in the last 2 races. You've also got Royal Spa, who has run well for Rudy Brusette over at Churchill Downs. Going to come into California, see if he can make some hay there. This is a grade 1 field. I thought this drew phenomenally. No, it's not a huge field, but there are a lot of different directions you can go. Who are you putting on top here, Aaron?
I was kind of with you. I saw it and thought, oh boy, Copian's back. That's fun, And then it's like, first of all, why are we going a mile and a 16th with Copian when she's been really, really good going short, going 1 turn? That's odd. And then it's like, okay, well, let's go back and see how she's done going 2 turns. Not great. So it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a chink in the armor, so to speak, right there on a horse that should be favored. And then, like you said, it's like, okay, now what are my other options? Seismic Beauty is a pretty good other option. You know who's pretty good going 2 turns? Seismic Beauty. 2 straight wins here coming into this one for Bob Baffert. He's not bad. His horses are running pretty good so far here at Del Mar. Gets the top jock for the Baffert barn, Juan Hernandez, at least when Flavian Pratt's not around. It's Juan Hernandez. So I went number 1 Seismic Beauty. And the Copian situation, I want to go back to this horse for just a second. The horse on Kentucky Derby Day ran in a 7 furlong, called the Derby Distaff, 7 furlong stakes, the Derby Distaff, and was electric. Somich, she was so good, and she beat horses who were really good in that race, who have come back to win races and big races after. Ran at Los Alamitos next and got beat. I don't know why you're running a really, really good horse there. No offense, but I don't know why. And now we're going 2 turns. It's weird. Weird enough for I'm going to go against. I'm going to go number 1, Seismic Beauty.
Yeah, they tried this once before with Copian in the Santa Anita Oaks. It was a grade 2 race where they stretched her out to a mile and 16th. That didn't go well. They did go fast early, and she was attending the pace, but I don't necessarily see her being able to really stalk like she did at Churchill Downs when she's sitting back in 6th. So I think the tactics we're going to see from Copian's interesting here. I will say the Great Lady M grade 2 race at Los Alamitos, 6.5 furlongs. She ran second to Sweet Azteca. Sweet Azteca does hold the track record at Los Alamitos, going 6.5 furlongs. So it wasn't in that race, but at the same time, grain of salt, that horse absolutely loves that racetrack. So I don't think it's a bad loss for Copian. I understand the idea here. You want to try and see if you can go to the distaff. You want to see if Copian can really stretch out. Omaha Beach on the top as the father. Victory Gallop on the bottom side. 2 horses that had no issue going all day if they needed to. Victory Gallop loved 1.5 mile races. Omaha Beach had no issue with 1.25 miles. So I do think that the idea here is the pedigree can stretch out. I just look at this race, and I look at Richie, and I look at Seismic Beauty, the 2 Baffert horses. Kind of feels like they're the ones who control the pace. And if Seismic Beauty goes from the inside and Richie plays blocker, which we've seen time and time again from Baffert horses, Copian's trip gets a lot more difficult. And at that point, there's a little bit too much that's going on for me to want to put Copian on top without seeing the off odds in this race. Now, if Seismic Beauty is the heavy favorite, I'm probably betting Copian. If Copian's the heavy favorite, I'm betting Seismic Beauty. This is going to come down to price in my mind, where if they're the same price, I want Seismic Beauty. But if you have Seismic Beauty at 4-5 and Copian at 2-1, I'll take Copian in that spot. And vice versa. If Copian's at 4-5 and Seismic Beauty's 2-1, I want Seismic Beauty. So this is one of the rare situations. I'm actually not going to pick a horse, but I'm going to tell you to look at the price of these 2 horses, and whichever one is the longer price to me, especially if it's Copian who's double the price of Seismic Beauty, that's where my win money goes here. So a little bit of a wishy-washy start to the show for me. Don't worry. We'll firm it up a little bit later. The number 1 Seismic Beauty for Aaron there in the Clement L. Hirsch, the 10th race over at Del Mar. Now let's transition over to the 8th, where I will not be wishy-washy. The Fourstardave going a mile on the inner turf course over at Saratoga. Race number 8 on an absolutely loaded Whitney card, Aaron. All my favorites are back here. My boy Prince coming back. I'm not going to bet him, but I do want to at least give him a shout out. Johannes comes in from California to try and take down a grade 1 on the New York turf. Think big. Your winner of the Kelso comes back here. You've got Intellect back in. Win for the money back in. Oh, by the way, Deterministic and Spirit of St. Louis decided, hey, we're cutting back. We're going after the 4-star Dave as well. Loaded race. Didn't even mention Laganos and Neat, who both are very accomplished horses in their own rights. Who do you have on top here, Aaron?
How fun is this race?
It's awesome.
This is one of my favorite races of the weekend. Maybe the favorite race of the meet so far. It's so good, dude. You mentioned it. It is a puzzle because you got horses that are perfect for a mile, and then you got the ones that are cutting back because, hey, it's a grade 1 4-Stardave here at Saratoga. We want to get a big win. Let's try it. Gosh, I had about 5 different horses on top while I was handicapping this at one point. I ended up, I wanted to go a little bit of a price because I do like the number 3 Johannes, but off the layoff, I'm a little concerned. Also shipping out here, I'm a little concerned. I'm going to go the number 4 Think Big to win this race. I was super impressed with Think Big last time out in the Kelso. You mentioned the winner of the Kelso last time out, and this is a horse that had been sprinting and had been sprinting very well, and I was very skeptical going a mile. I thought he was fantastic in this race. I really liked the number 6 Intellect in this race, and he was able to beat Intellect, and I thought Intellect ran great in the Kelso, and Think Big was able to run him down, and he did it. It's only a length victory, but once you picked up Think Big coming from the back about middle of the stretch, you knew he had the race won. He did it very nicely. So, it wasn't a blowout victory or anything like that, but man, he was moving like 2 horses to 1 down the lane. This is a much tougher race. However, I do like the number 6 Intellect, who he beat. I like him in this race as well. So it's a much tougher race, but still, it's not that much tougher than what he faced last time out, in my opinion. So give me the number 4 Think Big at 6-1. That was kind of the kicker to go, you know what, I'm going to take a shot with him once again in this one.
Right race, wrong horse. I loved Intellect in the Kelso. I would have won a BC seat if that flipping horse had been able to win. And Intellect's a very interesting case study here, because if you go 2 back and you look at the race that the 6-horse Intellect ran in the poker, Donegal Momentum went gate to wire. Donegal Momentum was like, I think 10-1 morning line, goes off at 3-1, somewhere in that range. Maybe it was 5-1 morning line. But your lone speed, the only horse who could go in a speed favoring track. Now, when you fast forward to the Kelso, that was also a speed favoring track, or at least so the jockeys thought going into that race. And Flavien Prat put Intellect closer to the pace than Intellect had ever been when going quickly. So they went 46 and 2 to the half. They went 48 in the poker. The 46 and 2 to the half, Intellect was only a half length off. Intellect was 6 lengths back on a 48 second half. Prat was trying to ride toward the conditions of the racetrack, and I think that's why Intellect lost. I think if Prat had been back where Think Big was, Intellect wins that race without a problem. And I like the fact I'm coming back and getting 5-1 on Intellect. You have horses like Deterministic, like Spirit of St. Louis. I think this is too short for them. I think they're kind of dead money in a place where they're both going to take money. Johannes, I think, is a big-time threat. But again, off the layoff, never touched the New York turf. I think 6-1 this is your opportunity on Intellect to get a price. I don't think we're going to see 6-1 on this horse doing what he does best, going a mile again. And the last 2 are sneaky bad trips. And I think today you see him right the ship.
I think if you remember this, if you remember what happened, I know you do. I'm just saying for people listening, Flavien Prat, I'll give Andy Serling, one of the people on the Naira feed. He said it's not his fault, but he screwed it up with Intellect. Yep. But he did the right thing based on how the track was playing all day, like you mentioned. But he screwed it up, right? And if you remember, Mike, the very next race, he was on a horse named Fiona.
I do remember.
He took her back, and he pulled off a big upset and beat a horse named Nitrogen, who is a very good horse and ran a very good race. And Flavien Prat said, I learned from the race before. I'm just going to do what this horse likes to do, and we're going to get the job done. And he did it. So you're right. That's what happened. I still think Big was very impressive in that race. So I'm with you. I like Intellect too. That's why I like Think Big so much though as well, because I think that was a strong race. And I think these 2 horses can come right here, and we know they fit a mile, where some of the other horses we're not quite sure about, minus Johannes, who we know can. The other ones, we're not, like Spirit of St. Louis, Deterministic, we're not quite sure that a mile is their absolute best. So that's why I'm with you. Like I think you should play Intellect back as well. Put them in the pick 4s and the pick 5s. I think Big and Intellect will be very tough here, but I still was super impressed with Think Big. I think he's going to be very, very tough to hold off.
Yeah, I think Big's a great horse too. I have him in 3rd, so I agree with you. I thought that he was a relevant horse to use here, but I'm probably going to be pressing in a pick 5 here, and Intellect will be a single for me in that. I want to take a shot here and see if I can separate myself with a horse that I've been chasing for the last 2 races, and I think kind of got the worst of the trip in both of those spots. So we'll see if he's able to come back. Spirit of St. Louis, deterministic. 2 horses we've seen do very well go longer. What do you do with them in this type of race? Because you're seeing them at 9-2, 6-1, right around the same price as Intellect, as Think Big. I can't put them in at that same price. I do think they make sense underneath, but I'm worried that this mile is going to go very quickly for them because this could easily be running, 132, 133, which would make it very tough for them to shorten up and win.
I think that's the problem, and I'm surprised they're here. Maybe they're kind of in the middle because, the Sword Dancer, another big turf race, is coming up next week. Maybe they thought that'd be too long for them, so they said, hey, let's try it here until we get a race that kind of fits them. I kind of think Deterministic has a better shot than Spirit of St. Louis. I just kind of feel like it's a horse that can get out towards the front, talking about Deterministic. We've kind of seen the horse at 9 furlongs. This is 8 furlongs, so at 9 furlongs, we've seen the horse do well. I kind of think it might translate a little bit better. Not perfect, but I think it does translate a little bit better. Yeah, with Spirit of St. Louis, I think it's going to be hard-pressed. And I love that horse, and you know it. I've bet that horse a lot. We've talked about that horse a lot since we've been doing the show together. But I don't think this is the greatest spot for that horse, where I do think Deterministic, it might be okay for him. So, but yeah, look, I think they're just kind of in-betweeners. It's kind of a weird spot. Let's take a chance. If there weren't so many good horses proven at a mile, the top ones, like we talked about Johannes, Intellect, and Think Big, you might be a little bit better, but boy, there are some really good milers in here.
Yeah, I think my boy Prince is a really good miler. I know I mentioned him. I don't think he wins. He's a cut below. Cugino, another horse that I think can excel at that mile distance. And last time the Deterministic went a mile was at Aqueduct, ran in the Grade 3 Manila, got beat by the number 10 horse Neat, who is 20-1. It just tells you the level of talent that's in this race. And by the way, don't completely ignore Neat. If you're playing triples, if you're playing supers, go back, watch the last race, watch the Kelso. Neat had a ton of trouble in that race and was still rolling, only missed by 2.5 lengths. I do think Neat a little interesting there at 20-1. In the Fourstardave, the Grade 1 race there at Saratoga, one of the coolest horses to ever run at Saratoga, Fourstardave, by the way. Give me the number 6 Intellect 5-1 on the morning line. Aaron's going to the number 4 Think Big, trying to go back-to-back over this turf course at a mile, 6-1 there on Think Big. All right, before we get into the last 2 races we're going to talk about, and of course the best bets a little bit later, why not head over to firstbet.com and sign up for an account now so that you can bet these races with us? First Bet lets you wager on hundreds of horse races every single day from top tracks across the U.S. and around the world. Sign up at firstbet.com. That's the number 1, STBET.com. Use promo code VSiN200 to claim a 20% rebate on all of your wagers, win or lose, for the first 60 days, up to $200. Head over to firstbet.com today. Promo code VSiN200. From the turf to the dirt here, let's talk about the Grade 1 Test Stakes. This is another race on this Whitney card, race number 10. This is the 100th running, yes, the 100th time they have run the Test Stakes here at Saratoga. 7 furlongs for fillies 3 years old. It is another phenomenal field here. Your favorite at 9-5, the number 6 horse, Echo Sound, but I don't think this is just open and shut, put Echo Sound on top. In fact, I don't have Echo Sound on top. Where are you going here?
Yeah, neither do I. I will say Echo Sound, the last race was a very good race. And if she runs back to that, it will be tough to beat her. But listen, some of our other races haven't been that good. This is another one, Somich. I went around and roundabout. I kept circling back to the number 1 Ragtime. This is the horse that only has 2 starts, but they were 2 amazing starts. Broke the maiden on debut right here over this track for Bill Mott. And Bill Mott is a great trainer. He does not win a lot with first-time starters, so anytime one of his first-time starters win, I take notice. For example, Sovereignty, the horse that's a monster, he was 4th in his debut race. So that just to show you, hey, Bill Mott with a first-time starter that wins, good horse. Second race right here at Saratoga again in an allowance spot, dominant again, probably even better than the maiden special weight, this horse. So now we're coming to a Grade 1 stakes off of 2 races. It's a big jump up. I understand that. But this horse dominated at the lower levels. I mean, just dominated. Then you also look and go, I think there's going to be a lot of pace in this race. This horse has great tactical ability to sit off the pace. I know it's a step up. I know we got to get a little bit faster, but I think she will. Give me number 1, Ragtime in this spot. I loved the first 2 races from her.
You know what's really hard, Aaron? to win on debut going 7 furlongs. Do you know what makes it even harder? To break from the rail. And that is what Ragtime did debuting at 9-1 at Saratoga over the Belmont Stakes weekend. And she was so professional and so impressive, able to win. By the way, going into that race, she was working with a horse called Stars and Stripes. Stars and Stripes won the next day at 8-1. And oh, by the way, won an allowance the following one. Those two were working together. She comes back, wins her allowance, first time against winners, now jumps up here. She's 2 for 2 over the track. She's 2 for 2 with the distance. Yes, she has not fully been tested, but if you go back and you watch that N1X, oh boy, was she under wraps. I mean, it was just wildly impressive what she was able to do in her second start, both times having to do so from off the pace. Super professional in both those starts. I would much rather take Ragtime at 4-1 than I would take Echo Sound at 9-5. I think you have to at least mention Beauty Reigns as well, the other mott that's in this race. I think the extra half furlong makes a difference for her. I think she actually wants 7. Not sure everybody in this field does. Beauty Reigns right now on the board at 6-1, ridden by Irad Ortiz Jr. But look, for me, it's number 1 Ragtime, and I did not go back and forth. I thought this was a horse that is, again, another one where if you want to play a press ticket and you want a single, good spot here to try and beat the favorite in Echo Sound. And you're right. If Echo Sound runs back to the last race, Ragtime will have to improve to win. I think if Echo Sounds runs back to the last race, Ragtime can still win. And that's saying something considering how good Echo Sound was. A couple other horses in here I thought were interesting. Cash Call comes in from California for Bob Baffert. Look Forward comes in after running second in the Acorn to Lucara. We saw her go gate to wire. Prior to that, won the 8 Bells at Churchill. She's shipping here for Mike McCarthy. Who else were you kind of going back and forth between, as you mentioned?
I'm going to go with another lightly raced horse that I really, really thought for a long time, and that's the number 5, Me and Molly McGee. Great name, by the way. This horse won 2 straight races at Churchill Downs. Won a maiden special weight super impressively, then came back and won an allowance, just like Ragtime. Very, very impressively. The only difference for me is it's kind of how you kind of described Ragtime. It's like, wow, that allowance win, that horse barely ran and just was able to be a monster and get the job done easily. Me and Molly McGee, listen, it was a little bit tougher, as it should be, stepping up from a maiden to an allowance, right? I mean, you should have a harder time winning, and she did, but still she did, and she did it pretty impressively. So I really thought this one was one that made a lot of sense, was very interesting, a nice price as well. And I think it's funny, we've kind of had the same idea so far on the show today of, yeah, I think we can get around this favorite, and we've got a couple options to do it. So me and Molly McGee, another one, kind of an up-and-comer that I thought was very, very interesting and a horse I really thought about for a while.
Yeah, and a race that is loaded with speed, me and Molly McGee, the speed of the speed. She is going to get to the front and take them as far as she possibly can. Yet to go 7 furlongs, to me, that's the big question. Now, is by Vacoma, who's been a phenomenal sire so far in his early sire career and has been able to have horses go that distance. So if me and Molly McGee gets loose, and there's water in the track, which we have a rainy day here. We're taping on a Thursday. It's supposed to rain all day. There's going to be some residual water there in this dirt course. We'll see if me and Molly McGee can take advantage of that. Her Tomlinson number on the wet. Absolutely phenomenal. One more I want to mention before we move on to the Whitney here. Kilwin, the number 2 horse. First try on dirt, pops a 96 Beyer after being stuck in the proverbial mud running 70 Beyers on the turf course. She could be a beneficiary of a very hot pace. Was able to close going 7 furlongs last time. At least keep an eye on the board there. If she floats up from 6-1, she's someone I'm interested in if I'm looking for horses to play underneath of some of the top horses here. And if you're spreading in this race and trying to beat Echo Sound, I think you do it with horses like Kilwin. I think you do it with horses like me and Molly McGee, where you have a specific race style, a race path in your head that plays out that gives them an advantage. Kilwin from off the pace, me and Molly McGee from gate to wire. So race number 10, Saratoga, the grade 1 test on Saturday. Ragtime for Aaron, the number 1 Ragtime for Mike. We'll see if we can get that horse home with all the extra weight on her back. Now, let's talk about the feature race, the grade 1 Whitney, the 11th race from Saratoga on Saturday. Quick note here, Mindframe, the number 1 horse, expected to scratch. So all of the handicapping I did was with the assumption that Mindframe will not be in this race. Your favorite going to be the number 9, Fierceness at 9-5. Second choice, the number 5, Sierra Leone. We've seen those two bang heads before. At 2-1, and the third choice, the number 7, White Abarrio, Breeders' Cup Classic winner, White Abarrio, also has won the Whitney here at 4-1. Aaron, where are you going on top?
Yeah, what a race, right? I mean, this is what it's all about. I feel like we've said that. We're a broken record, I guess, on this show because we've said
It's a great
it
card. It's a great Saturday of racing.
It really is. Like, it's just one of those Saturdays where it's like, yeah, I'm going to be in front of the TV all day. But look, I am going to go number 9, Fierceness on top in here. I really didn't want to play a 9-5 shot in such a deep field. And kind of, that's what I was thinking in the other races. I didn't really want to, but I just keep circling back and thinking, you know what? At 1 1/8, if we see the best race from Fierceness, he's better than this group. And look, I think this is a very strong group. Don't get me wrong, but he's better going this distance if he's at his best. I really don't hold the Met Mile against him that he lost last time out. He doesn't love a sloppy or a wet racetrack. That's kind of been proven over time. It was pretty sloppy that day for sure. Just rain all day long until about middle of the card. He also ran into a horse named Raging Torrent, who's pretty darn good at 1 mile, especially when he gets the lead. And I think people saw Fierceness kind of range up like he was going to win, and then he couldn't get by him. And they blame Fierceness for it. And he does. There's some blame. I get it. But Raging Torrent's really tough to pass. And you know what's really hard to do? Pass horses on a wet racetrack on the dirt at Saratoga. So, again, I don't hold that against him. And hopefully people do, because I think he should be a pretty short price in here. Look, I think he stalks a pace. I actually like an outside post draw for him because I kind of just keep him wide anyway and just keep him away from the other horses. So I think it's a good draw for him. I do think he's going to get hung wide, but he does anyway. Like I said, no big deal. I'm going to go number 9, Fierceness on top. I just think he's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, the results out of the Wilson shoot at Saratoga are so hard to handicap because it's such a funky course. If you go and you watch it, they start at different places in the gate, depending on how many horses are there. We've seen speed actually not be great out of it. But like a grade 1 race with Fierceness at 1 1:35 tells you how slow that track was, and that to me is the big problem here for Fierceness. Like they can run that 1:30 or that mile in 1:33, and it came back 1:35 and change, almost 1:36, which is a very average time. You still see the big Beyer because everybody was a little bit slower going that mile that day. I think Fierceness is the horse to beat. I think he's the best horse in this race. I am hoping that people somehow get on the Sierra Leone train, who is a horse I've realized I will just never bet. I think Sierra Leone is always overbet in these races because of what he needs to do coming from the back of the track. Yeah, I get it. He finished second in the Derby. Yes, he won the Breeders' Cup Classic next year, but that was a classic that absolutely fell apart. I thought Fierceness actually ran better in the Breeders' Cup Classic, even though he was not able to win the race. To me, this is a 2-horse race. It's either White Barrio or it's Fierceness for me. I really didn't even think that this was that contentious. Like horses like Disarm, Highland Falls, Skippy Longstocking, they're all a cup below. And to me, it's never going to be Sierra Leone. So it's pretty easy for me to land on the 7 and the 9 here. I do like Fierceness more. Kind of like the price on White Barrio more. We know he likes the track. He's won the race before. So I do think that White Barrio has the opportunity to be able to really step forward here, but it's number 9 Fierceness for me, and White Barrio, the only other horse I'm really going to be using in multi-race tickets.
White Barrio is just an interesting horse, isn't he? When he's at his best, absolutely, so him and Fierceness are equals when White Barrio is at his best. Early in the career, Fierceness was the horse that's, this horse is so inconsistent. He's kind of got it figured out now. White Barrio, it's just Jekyll and Hyde with this one. I thought his race in the Pegasus World Cup to start the season was just fantastic. And if he shows up with that effort, he's going to win. You mentioned he won the Whitney a couple years ago. If he shows up with that effort, yeah, I could see him winning, no doubt about it. Just too many times he has just shown up with nothing, including same race last time out in the Met Mile, or you needed a telescope to find him, and that was the second straight year where he was nowhere to be found in the Met Mile. So it's wild.
That's the thing to me. Just look at the 2-turn races. Like just focus on those, and all of a sudden he's not Jekyll and Hyde, right? He's running the Met Mile 3 times. 5th, 4th, and 3rd, right? He's running 7 furlongs. Yeah, he won at $62,000 allowance, but then loses the Grade 3 race in a race that he really was by far the most talented horse. Comes back, wins the Pegasus Invitational, goes to the Ghost Sapper, mile 16th, wins that race for fun. You even go back to his Breeder Club Classic year. Ran in the Met Mile, steps forward into the Whitney, wins that, then wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's just a better 2-turn horse, but a horse that's so talented that the ownership group and Safi are willing to take shots at all these funky distances because you could win them. So to me, it's just a muddied up form specifically because of the international races that we have seen and because of these shorter races and the fact that they've tried to the Met Mile 3 times.
Well, I think the other big problem is when he doesn't win, it's like bad. And I think that really scares people, right? Because when he doesn't win, he's not on the screen. And I think people really hate to bet horses like that. Like you got your money on a horse, you go out, you're ready to watch the race, you're watching on TV, and it's like, where was he? I didn't even see him the whole race. That's such a waste, you know? So, and I think that's what people worry about. But you're right. Like, 2-turn races, when he's on his best, he's very tough. I also think 1 1/8, which is the distance of this race, does fit him better than going 1 1/4. So I do think this is a really good spot. I'm not saying he's a bad 1 1/4 horse, but I think his absolute best races have been at 1 1/8. So, look, I'm with you. And again, why, like, we've seen this movie with Sierra Leone how many times, Somich, and we saw it live and in person at Saratoga 3 times last year, talking about the Belmont, the Jim Dandy, and the Travers. Every single time, he got too far behind. There wasn't enough pace, and he couldn't get the job done. And Chad Brown even said last year he doesn't like Saratoga, talking about Sierra Leone. He doesn't like Saratoga. He doesn't like this track. So what changes here? There is more pace. They did buy, his ownership group did purchase the number 8 Contrary Thinking as a rabbit to try to speed up the pace. Like, and everybody was like, oh, what a brilliant move. And I was like, no, finally, like, it took this long for you guys to do this. I don't think it's brilliant at all. I think you're 11 races too late. You've known for 2.5 years this horse can't get out towards the front. So, I mean, maybe that helps, maybe, but still, can he get all the way up there and win? I'm not sure at this distance.
Yeah, I mean, they went 134 for a mile on the Stephen Foster, and he couldn't run him down. Right. And so I'm not sure that this is if you're playing tries, if you're playing supers, don't leave him off. But if you're like, I don't think he can win the race. And you mentioned Whitney, he's either off the screen. When he wins, he's also off the screen, winning by 6, winning by 10, right? And so if I'm betting win, I don't care if I can't see my horse, as long as when they're winning, because I'd rather they run last than second. I don't even get teased with my wager there. We do have a lot of prices in here. We've talked mainly about the 3 favorites. Anyone at a price you have any interest in, either to fill out supers or possibly upset the big 3?
Well, you called this horse a little bit outclassed, and I do agree with you on that. But I do think the number 3 Highland Falls is interesting underneath. And look, if, say, Fierceness doesn't run very well and Whitey doesn't run very well, all of a sudden I think the number 3 Highland Falls can win. He has a big win over this track. It came in the Jockey Club Gold Cup last year. Didn't run well in the Breeders' Cup Classic after that. Then a long layoff. He came back last time out in an allowance at Belmont at the Big A, and he looked really, really good. I think this is a nice horse, and I think if he shows up with his best, he can at least compete. So I thought the number 3 Highland Falls was super interesting. I would rather play him than like number 2 Skippy Longstocking or number 6 Disarm or even number 10 Post Time, because we've seen that story before. They're really nice grade 2, grade 3 types that just haven't been able to compete when they move up to the highest levels. Where with Highland Falls, we did see him win a grade 1 race, like I said, here last year. And I do think we're not quite sure if he steps up and runs in multiple grade 1s, how that will look. So the number 3 Highland Falls is interesting to me.
I mean, shots fired at Post Time there, who ran second in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. That's pretty good, pretty nice grade 1 race there. Also ran third here in the Whitney last year, as well as second in the Met Mile. So like Saratoga, Post Time would be the one for me. I'm willing to, not on top, but I'm willing to use Post Time underneath at 12-1 at a decent price there in the Whitney Stakes. Now, before we jump into the best bets here of the day, make sure you're getting one of the best trifectas out there. This is the G-Bank, VSiN, and First Bet trifecta, $500 trifecta. In fact, all you need to do is open a G-Bank Visa signature credit card in the first 90 days, deposit and play through $1,000 over at First Bet to trigger the $500 trifecta. You'll receive $200 in cashback rewards on your G-Bank Visa signature credit card. First Bet will give you a $100 deposit match bonus, and VSiN completes the trifecta with a free 6-month VSiN Pro subscription. That's a $500 trifecta from G-Bank, First Bet, and VSiN. Head over to VSiN.com/GBank. That's VSIN.com/GBank. This is a one-time promotion limited to customers opening a new account in response to this offer and will not apply to requests to transfer or to convert existing accounts. Apply today. Make sure you read the terms and conditions. Now, Aaron, let's do the best bets a little differently. We've got 4 best bets here from this Saratoga card. Let's do them in numerical order, which means Mike here is up first. This is going to come from race number 2 on Saturday's card. Maiden special weight. This is a mile and a 16th on the inner turf. And the horses that have run, I have no interest in right out of the gate, right? And like the Miguel Clement, the 4-horse with Rosario, Clement's Ophir with first-time starters. Now it's obviously very young in his career, and his father was pretty good with them. I don't see how we get around the 5 Capital Partner here. This is a horse out of a son of Kingman, pivotal on the bottom side, just bred to absolutely love the turf. Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt, Klarovich Stables, all the connections fit. Anything near 7-2 feels like a steal. I would take 2-1 on this horse. Capital Partner here, the 5 horse in the second race. I think he is an absolute standout. And the 2 horses I'm most scared of are the 1 and the 3, who are 10-1 and 12-1 respectively. So best bet first for me on the Saratoga card, race number 2, number 5 horse, Capital Partner. Do you have this one on top?
I did. Yeah, I do like Capital Partner quite a bit in this spot as well. I was kind of with you. It's always tough when you got first-time starters. You don't really know who they are, what they're going to end up being. But you're right. I thought, man, this is a pretty good spot. And if this Capital Partner is a decent horse here for Chad Brown, this is a really good spot to debut. Not a lot of monsters in that field, so I'm with you there. Now, if you want to play a daily double, go to Saratoga race 3, which might be the race of the day.
It might be. This race is loaded.
This is fun. So, look, I'm going to go with my first best bet, Saratoga race 3, number 6, Obliteration. And look, I'm going to play Obliteration because there are other horses in here that are going to take money. So I don't think he's going to be too short of a price. This horse has been amazing in his first 2 starts. Won the local prep for this last time out here at Saratoga by like 1 million links. Could have been 1 million. I mean, just an unbelievable effort. Was a great effort on debut at Churchill Down as well. Won by multiple links. The horse that finished second came back up here to Saratoga in his next start and beat a heavily hyped horse by like 8.5 links. It was just a blowout win. So this horse has been beating pretty good horses and been doing it pretty easily. Don't get me wrong. The number 1 Ewing looked like a monster on debut. He will be tough to beat. The number 4 Dazzle d'Oro looked like a monster last time out at Churchill. He will be tough to beat. That's how much respect I have for the number 6 Obliteration. I think he's just a little bit better than these horses, and I think because they're in here, you're going to get a better price on Obliteration. So give me Obliteration in the 3rd.
Yeah, you mentioned this. This might be the best race of the day. Well, I shouldn't say that. This is one of the most races I'm most excited to watch of the day. I mentioned earlier with the debut of Brant, he was the best 2-year-old on the West Coast. This will decide who the best 2-year-old we've seen so far on the East Coast is. Obliteration was awesome in the Sanford. You can't argue it. Just dominated that race, went gate to wire, never really tested, and even bobbled a little bit at the start while doing so. I like the 1 Ewing though. Give me the inside here, Son of Nick's Go, that I think is just as fast as Obliteration. And I thought was just so impressive in the morning. There was a 46 work out of the gate before that debut and just did it so easily. So easily. And a good time there at Saratoga. The rail, I think, makes the difference. I think that Ewing gets inside of Obliteration. It makes it a little more difficult for Obliteration to be able to go gate to wire. I will say this. I am at least a little interested in the 2-horse Comport who can pass horses. Like, there's a possibility this is just a blistering early pace and someone's able to catch him late. But this is going to be a lot of fun. You mentioned the 6 Obliteration, your best bet here. I have Ewing on top, but it's very lukewarm over Obliteration. Dazzle d'Oro, another horse I can't wait to see that Jose Ortiz decided to ride over Ewing, by the way. So that tells you how much talent's there. And Comport, I think, is really interesting, too. So going to be an absolutely fun 3rd race. Their best bet, the first one of the day for Aaron, the number 6 horse Obliteration in the grade 2 Saratoga Special, the 3rd race on the Whitney card. Second best bet for me, why not just go to the toughest race of the day, Aaron? The 7th race, which drew a massive field of 14 horses in. There's also an also eligible in the 15th horse. I'm picking this race because I'm getting the price I want on the number 13 Jefferson Street, who is 9-2 on the morning line, should be every single bit of that price. And I want to bet against the number 11 Creditworthy. This is the type of favorite I like to fade. 3-1 on the morning line. Ran 3 times on the turf. Runs a 4th time, scheduled on the turf, gets scratched off for the dirt, runs a career best Beyer in that race, and now we're going to try an incredibly salty allowance race here with a ton of horses versus just the 6 horses or 5 horses you faced last time, who are all turf horses. I think this is a great spot to bet against the 11. I'm going to do it with the number 13 Jefferson Street, who absolutely aired over this track in an N1X allowance before, won by 8 lengths, got a 102 Beyer that day, has been trying grade 1 and grade 2 company since then, has been a little bit cut below, but Mott very good off this type of layoff. Jefferson Street proven over the track. I think the pace sets up well. I think the price is right at 9-2.
Man, you're crazy for taking a best bet out of that race. I'll say that. I do think you have the right horse, or at least one of them maybe, but holy cow, you're right. That is the toughest race of the day for my money as well. I had a hard time with that one. And we've talked about we had the hard races on this card, but that is a very tough one, no doubt. All right. This one is pretty tough as well, but I do really like a horse coming in from overseas. So Saturday at Saratoga, race number 9. I like the number 7, Hot as Hell. By the way, great name, as it's been hot as hell all over the country, I feel like, this summer. But look, this horse coming in from overseas. If you don't follow the racing overseas, their turf horses are usually a notch better than ours. It's not an exact science, but usually they are. And so this horse coming in, a Group 1 winner from overseas, coming in here to face a field. I do have respect for the number 5 test score, but I don't know, Somich. I don't love anybody in here from the United States, and I think this is a really good spot for a European shipper to come over and get the job done. So Saratoga, race number 9. I like the number 7, Hot as Hell. I just think he might be a touch better than our 3-year-old turf horses.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about all these grade 1 races, and I think this is the least competitive. I agree with you. I think Hot as Hell should be your pretty heavily favored horse here. 7-5 on the morning line. I don't think you get better than even money. It's a horse that was running against Henry Matisse over in Europe, one of the better horses over there. Has been back-to-back-to-back Group 1s over there, including a win in one of those races, and has been very, very good the first 2 starts here in 2025 as well. This seems like a standout to me. I agree with you. Test score, the best American horse. If you want to just go 5-7 and move along, I think you definitely can do that. It's the 2 favorites, though. You do have a couple other international shippers, but they're not nearly the level as Hot as Hell. So I agree with you. The 7 in the 9th race at Saratoga there, the Saratoga Derby Invitational. Aaron's second best bet. Aaron, loaded show. We got it all in, though. I'm proud of us. That was a fun little VSiN at the track. Thank you very much for joining us here, whether it was in podcast form over on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and download for us. 5 stars only on that rating, please. And if you want to check us out over on YouTube, you can do that as well at VSiN Live over on YouTube. Want to give a shout out to our technical team, a little bit different this week for us on the back end. Appreciate Isaiah Wrinkle and Matt Deutsch for everything that they have done on the back end to make this a smooth transition. And make sure you keep an eye on that podcast feed as well. I have a special episode out on Tuesday with our first VSiN at the track debate. It's going to be about the Breeders' Cup Classic this week, so make sure to check that out as well. Thank you very much for joining both Aaron Halterman and myself, and good luck this weekend at the track.
This is VSiN at the Track.